That John Franks, though, right? He's a great guy. We love John and Sarah, and they have poured their heart and soul into what we're doing now as a church. You walked in, or you were outside, some of you pulled around, you're like, oh, where do I park? Well, that's okay. We had people out there hopefully pointing you in the right direction. They put a tremendous amount of work into this. There have been multiple weeks where people were up here working 6 8-hour days and stuff like that. Not 6 different 8-hour days, but 6 to 8 hours in a day. And so I just want you to understand that there are people here who love you, and that's why they put the work in. They're putting the work in for you. They're putting the work in for the city of Jonesboro. And sometimes people give the pastor all the credit for things. And let me just go ahead and drop that. I am responsible for nothing good that happens here. And so there's a great team of people that I get to be part of, and I am so thrilled to have them. So they're not in here right now because some of them might be, but most of them are out there working. So, hey, let's just clap for those guys, right? And the way God has put people together as a church for us, it's good. So we're finishing up this idea of one another is better than being alone. And I know some people are like, nah, it ain't true. I like being alone. I like my alone time. I need to be away from people. Well, there are times where we need to be away from people. Yeah. But if that's where we go to get better, then it could be that we're missing something. And so let's jump in and see if you guys can agree on some of that. So right away, first, why do Verge groups exist? Because that's what today is about. Today is all about Verge groups. You've seen people with those cool Verge group shirts. Mine's really sweaty, so I buttoned up. And why do we do that? Why not just make Sunday morning great? Why not do Sunday night and Wednesday night and all that other kind of stuff here at this building? And the reason is real simple, because we believe that people meeting in a different place and learning to live life together is going to be better. So here it is, kind of in a sentence. Verge groups exist as a way for people to engage in biblical community that helps them become more like Christ in every area of their lives. Some of you this morning, you want to be more like Jesus. You want to be a Christ follower. Some of you this morning, you want a comfortable chair. And I think we've got those. And some of you are like, I wanted to try church, but I wasn't really sure what I'd think about church. And so far, it's been, We all have different levels of desire. But for those of us who want to be more like Christ, groups is the best way, because we live life together. We really grow together. And I just kind of want to share that. I want to draw that vision out for why we do it. And kind of here's the hope, right? Is that as we go into this group stage, that we would create authentic, spirit-driven experiences for people to become more like Christ. Lots of opportunities to do that. And that it would be throughout our city, all over the place. When you walked into the building this morning, any of you noticed a lot of red duct tape all over the place? You're like, what in the world? Like, it looked like Duct Tape Monster threw up, except it was like in great rhythm and lines. It's a map. It's a big map of Jonesboro. And we've got the main cities in Jonesboro outlined out there so we can show you where these groups are located, so that wherever you live, hopefully there's somebody within a 10 or 15 minute drive of you if you're in the 72401-ish area. And so we've got something for you. But let's jump into Bible. Genesis 2:18. So way back in the beginning, right, when God was just finishing up with everything. In verse 18, he says, it is not good for man to be what? Alone. It is not good for man to be alone. And we know that then he created Eve. He created woman to be a helper for man. But if we just take this verse, it is not good for man to be alone. Why? Well, because we don't grow by ourselves. We never become the best version of us by ourselves. And then in Acts 2, so we're going to go Old Testament, beginning of it all, and then we go into the beginning of the church in Acts 2, and here's what I want you to see, how it operated. This is just after Jesus leaves. He was killed, he was buried, and he raised again. It's just so much great power right there. If you're struggling with the resurrection and whether or not that's possible, I would love to talk to you sometime about that. And then Jesus leaves and he gives these people kind of like a mandate, a mission. And this is what it looks like just a little bit later. Acts 2, verse 42 says that they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, and the apostles are those who were following Jesus and starting the church. And so they devoted themselves to the teaching, to fellowship, which means to hanging out with each other, to the breaking of bread. It's a fancy way of saying eating, isn't it? Any of you ever go over to your neighbor like, hey, neighbor, would you like to come break bread with me? Like, what kind of bread? That's stale bread. I tear bread. Any of you tear bread terrors? Anybody remember Seinfeld and man hands tearing the bread? No? Maybe not. Okay, sorry. So we devoted ourselves to teaching, to fellowship, to eating together, and to prayer. And then verse 43, this is beautiful. This is what happens in group life, in community life. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and signs were being performed through the apostles. So in these communities, as the new church was beginning, miracles were happening. People's lives were being changed. People were being healed of diseases. People were finding jobs. People were finding life. People were giving birth, and some people were struggling through other things, and they were seeing God do things in people's lives. For some of you, it was a miracle. Maybe some of the parents in this church, their kids went to bed the first time they were told. Any miracles? It's beautiful to see things happen and then to know God is at work. Verse 44, and this is so, all the believers were together and held all things in common. Wouldn't that be fun? To know that I'm not happy, I'm not worried about getting more than you got. I'm not frustrated by what you have that I don't have, because everything is together as one body of believers. We actually love each other and we come together. That's what they were doing. They sold their possessions and property and distributed the proceeds to all as any had need. Every day they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple, and they broke bread from house to house. They ate their food with joyful and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. Every day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. This type of community life was leading people to Jesus. Why? Because they were seeing real people really loving each other. What we don't see right here is we don't see the struggle, because it doesn't talk about, and this person was struggling. But we know people were struggling, and here's how we know people were struggling. They sold stuff to meet needs. The church did whatever it took for them to bring people along and for those people to see the goodness of God and to come into a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that is what we are doing. So some of the benefits of group life. Again, I'm not trying to sell you on groups, but I am. They learn together. Right there in Acts 2, we see it. They learn together. Some of our groups are going to be Bible study type groups. You're going to learn more. You're going to read great books. You're going to watch great DVD lessons, and you're going to do other stuff. Some of you are going to learn how to fix cars. Some of you are going to learn how to fish. You're going to learn together. You're going to grow together in knowledge. They're going to be together. That's what the church was. The church was together. They cared about each other. They were eating together. Anybody like to eat? Anybody like to cook? Where are the people who really like to cook? You got a group? Because I like eating. Tracy, my wife Tracy, is going to do a food group. It's for ladies only, so I'm feeling a little bit discriminated against, but whatever. And they're going to meet once a month on a Friday night, and they're going to cook different recipes from different people together. And then I told her I was going to create a guys group that was going to meet once a month on a Friday night, and it was going to eat their food. I'm still working on getting that together, but I think she's going to keep the location secret because nobody could watch all of our kids. But we see God move together. That's what they were doing. They were seeing God move. Did you catch that? There were signs and wonders, and people were there to notice it. Why? Because they were together. They were spending time in one another's lives. And I know some people are like, I don't want to spend time with other people. It was hard for me to even come in here. And I know that. I understand that. I just want us to understand that if we are going to fulfill the mission of God, to make disciples, which means to get followers, and be able to teach them how to follow Jesus and become more like Christ, then we have to be in contact with people. We have to. If we're going to get them, we got to go where they are. So, becoming more like Christ, what we want is we want to become more like Christ as we share life with people who are becoming more like Christ. Does that make sense? You will become more like Christ as you share life with people who are becoming more like Christ. It kind of just flows from whatever you do, whatever group you join. If you join a group of people that are avid football watchers, you will become a football watcher. I have a great story. I mean, Kyle Stevens, if you don't know Kyle Stevens, man, we did a God of the Underdogs study way back in the day, and we were reading God of the Underdogs, and it was at our house. Our group was on Sunday night, and it started about 5:30 or 6. Well, what else was going on at 5:30 or 6 on Sunday night? Sunday Night Football was getting ready to start. And every week, we were finishing up whatever late game was, and then we were sticking around. And once 7 o'clock came on, Sunday Night Football came on, it was like, okay, guys, let's keep talking about the book. And next thing you know, he joins our fantasy football league the next season. And Kyle's really smart. He gets started breaking down. He was keeping up with stuff. I'm like, man, you don't even like football. I do now. Now, he might not like it now because he might not watch it anymore. I don't know. We hadn't talked about it in a while. But you become more like the people you're around. So if you're around people who are becoming like Christ, you can become more like Christ. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture of how God has set life up to work. And that's why it's important about the people we put ourselves around. And here, some of you might disagree, but I'm just going to make a statement that I think is true. So let's see what y'all think, all right? I don't think you can become more like Christ without other people. You can't become more like Christ without other people. And some of you are thinking, well, I got my spouse. Oh, trust me, sometimes you are definitely not like Christ with your spouse. Ask my wife if I'm ever not like Christ. She's like, well, I mean, if you consider when he went into the temple and drove out the money changers, maybe. Sometimes I'm not. But here's what I want you to think about. We have to express humility when we're around other people. Because other people do us wrong, and we've got to be humble sometimes. Or other people want to go here, and we've got to be humble sometimes. We've got to express forgiveness when we're around other people. You don't have to do that if you're by yourself. You don't have to express humility if you're by yourself. You can do whatever you want to do all the time. You express love when you're around other people. You show grace when you're around other people. You're humble, you're forgiving, you're loving, you're gracious. You become more like Christ around other people. Because Christ is humble, He's forgiving, He's loving, He's gracious. And that is what other people has the opportunity to do for us. How many of you ever been around somebody you had to forgive? I just want to take let's have an experiment real quick. Any of you had to forgive anybody? Just checking. Okay, there are a few of you. Some of you need to hang out with people more. Like you're forgiving folks every day or you're not, and then you're holding on to it. And some of you probably need to deal with some bitterness now. Right? Anybody ever had to love other people when you didn't really want to love other people? You're like, all right, I get it. Right now I'm supposed to love you. How many of you, it's easier for you to love your dogs than it is for you to love people? Right? Because whenever you come home, them dogs are excited. They're waiting. They're just like, oh, I hear you. They hear you when you turn down the road, apparently. I don't know, because it's like, I don't know how they even had any idea that we were home yet. They must smell our car. And if people treated you with that type of loyalty and that type of zeal and that type of, oh, I really want to just lick your face, it'd be weird. But we would be more apt to love. We would be more gracious. We would be more kind. We would be more forgiving. But I think that's the reality is that God knew when He designed it that it was going to be hard to love people. But that's where community is. It's in that hard place of learning to love people. I got a couple of statements here. There's this guy I was reading, and his name's some kind of like Belazikian or something, okay? So we're just going to go with that. Sorry, Mr. Belazikian, if I didn't say it right. He said this, community is deeply grounded in the nature of God. It flows from who God is. And because He is community, He creates community. And by community, okay, I'm not just talking about like whatever community you're a part of. Like I live in Bay, I live in Brooklyn. No, not that community. Okay, and I'm talking about that oneness with people. It is His gift of Himself to humans. So community, that oneness with people, is God's gift of His presence. Therefore, the making of community may not be regarded as an optional decision for Christians. It is a compelling and irrevocable necessity, a binding divine mandate for all believers at all times. This guy's very point, all he's saying is, guys, if we want to become more like Christ, we don't have the option. And some of you are on the fence right now about this community thing and about this group launch stuff. Some of you are excited about it. You're just like, I can't wait. You're like doing toe touches and stuff, and it's great. We've got to make our decision. What are we going to do? So I got a couple of things I want to encourage you with that maybe will help. See what God says to you through this. John 13, 34, and 35, Jesus is talking to his disciples, okay? And he says this, a new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, you must love one another. And watch, this is the power. By your love for one another, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So your love for one another will show everyone you are mine. And this is what's good. People aren't going to see that you are mine in your church attendance, in your church buildings. They're not going to see that you are mine in your prayer meetings and in your preaching and in your singing. They're not going to see that you are mine in all of those activities. That's not what Jesus said. Jesus could have gone to his disciples and said, hey guys, it's 9:30 on the Sabbath. Let's go. We've got to go to the synagogue so people can know that you are mine. Hey guys, come pray with me so that people will know. He could have said all of that stuff, but what he chose to say, what shows people that we are following God, is our love for one another. And there is no better place to display that than being with one another. And I think that's just so true. Francis Schaeffer is a theologian from yesteryear. There's a fun word. He says, our relationship with each other is the criterion the world uses to judge whether our message is truthful. Christian community is the final apologetic. Any of you know anybody that doesn't believe, doesn't want to be Christian, or doesn't think church is necessary because of the way the church is? How divided we are, how much we fight, how much we disagree with each other, how much we talk about mine's better than yours. Any of you know anybody like that struggles with believing whether or not this is real? But what if the church, the people of God, could come together in love and we could treat each other as equal because we come around who Jesus is and we love one another? You think people would want to be a part of that? My hope is yes, because we're putting all of our chips in that. We're putting all of our chips in showing people how good Jesus Christ is by the way we treat them, by the way we love them, by the way we help them when they're struggling, by the way we cry with them, we laugh with them. That's what we're expecting, and we expect God to do something. So, why today? Why group launch? For some people, for some churches, groups is kind of and this is a vision moment, which we're going to do. In 2 weeks, we're going to go to the park, and on September 9th, our church service that Sunday morning is actually going to be at Pavilion 4 at Craighead Park. Like, you're going to roll up here at 10:30 and be like, oh, where everybody at? Rapture? Where everybody? We're going to be at Pavilion 4, and we're going to be having a great time. We're going to be worshiping. We're going to have a little teaching. I'm going to share the vision of us as a church. We're going to cook out. We're going to invite everybody playing at the park to come eat with us. It's going to be a lot of fun, so be sure you get to show up for that and invite people, because they'll go with you to the park, right? Everybody loves the park. Group launch is not just another ministry or another program that we're trying to see if it works. Guys, this is the very heartbeat of our church. This is the life of who we are and what we believe God has called us to do to reach our community. We want to give people opportunities that are close to them. So we believe this is an opportunity to build relationships that encourage one another to keep going. Keep going, because that's what God intends. As we become more like Christ, the path is not going to be easy. And sometimes I'm going to need people with me, people beside me saying, Michael, don't give up. Michael, keep going. Michael, you're in this because God has called you and he will finish what he starts. Get in it and let people encourage you. Let people love on you. Because here's what will happen in groups. I want to be sure and read this. You're going to find people to be honest with. You ever have people you just can't be honest with? You can't tell them about your struggle. You can't tell them about your victories because they're jealous once you do. You're going to find people you can be honest with. You're going to find people who will still love you when you screw up. You're going to find people who will forgive you when you mess up. You're going to find people who will inspire you when you lose hope. You're going to find people who will not give up on you when you give up on you. That's what group is going to give you. This community is going to give you. This is where you find people to laugh with you, people to cry with you. This is where you will find people who will not let you stay like you are. Oh, and then you will hate them for it sometimes. You will find people who will push you, who will pull you, and who will pray you into becoming more like Jesus. Because we don't have a culture of give up. We don't have a culture of condemn. We don't have a culture of it'll be okay. We have a culture of you're not alone in this. We are going to become more like Christ together. We are. I believe it. So 3 things that are going to happen. 1, groups meet regularly. But what if I can't make it regularly? Then you make it irregularly for you. The group will still meet. Don't be offended. Groups meet regularly. Some of them meet weekly. Some of them meet every other week. Some of them meet once a month. So get in where you fit in, okay? Find a place that's good for you. But once you find your people, try them out. We will not get offended. Listen, group leaders have been told, do not get offended when people leave your group to go to somebody else's. Will it hurt your feelings? Probably. Will you be offended? Not if you're pursuing Jesus. But once you find your people, commit to meet with them for the season. Stay in it. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't lose it. Commit. Pray for each other. That's what groups do. They meet regularly and they pray for each other. And then they grow in community. You will confess your sin and your struggles and your joys in group. You'll rejoice with people. You will mourn with people in group. We do that every time we meet, some of them. We do that. But we believe true Christ-likeness is less about what you know and more about who you're with and who you're becoming. We want to teach you how to follow Jesus, but we don't want to teach you every time by sitting down and going through a book or going through even parts of the Bible. That's not all. We're going to model how to follow Jesus by being in group together. So here's what I'd ask. Okay, we're done early today, all right? Everybody's like, oh my goodness, we're going to beat everybody out for lunch. I would ask that if you would normally stay here until 11:45, 12 o'clock, I would ask for you to stay here until 11:45 or 12 o'clock outside in the heat. Sure, go grab an ice cream sandwich and come back in the AC. I don't care how you do it. But check out these groups. See where they're located. When do they meet? Take pictures. Pray about it. If you want to sign up for one, sign up. If you want to sign up for, we have 19. If you want to sign up for 19, one, you didn't pay attention because some of them are girl only, some of them are man only. You can't sign up for, that's going to be weird. All right, don't sign up for all of them. Sign up for as many as you're interested in. Get contacted by the group leader. And then here's what's fun, guys. Here's the vision. The vision is not that you join a group and you're done. It's that you join a group, God changes your life, and then you lead a group next time. Because Jonesboro has people that need to find their people. And you, all of us, we are somebody else's people. And they need us. Let's pray. God, you are so faithful. You are so good. Thank you for this vision and this hope. May you inspire people to follow you and to rejoice and to show people how good you are. In Jesus' name, amen.